What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So as y'all know, I have been playing older games recently, and with that I have been playing a bit of Need for Speed Shift, and I also was thinking about some of my favorite events back in this game, and with that was going to be the endurance events. Specifically, one of them, for that matter, is going to be the Figure 8 race. Now, upon first glance, you're probably going to know exactly what will most likely end up happening in this race, but you will end up starting off on a regular grid there, and the main goal of this event, I would say, is to pretty much honestly just survive it. I mean, there is going to be a lot of other racers there, and you all probably know exactly what is going to happen. It is going to be a figure eight, so most of the time the cars are pretty much going to crash into each other, and I would almost guarantee races like this probably do not exist. I mean, racing something like a $500,000 race car, probably some of these are, or at least close to a million, with like the entire R&D that goes into them, especially racing a Lambo. But these races really are going to be so dang chaotic, man. Like, you pretty much are going to realize that you're probably just going to try to survive it or at least get to the end of it. And the other goal is to try to win the race if you possibly can, which I would say most people probably will. The reason for that is as long as you are going to be careful, keeping an eye on that mini map, making sure you're passing the main part of the road there, not wrecking into everybody because all the AI will, you probably will end up being good to go. For this, I did end up using the Dodge Viper with a works conversion. I gotta admit, with the works conversion on this car, it's probably going to be a tad too quick. But then again, though, you're also going to want to have a lot of acceleration. That way you can pass the main part of it, not get stuck in the middle of the road or stop there and then try to accelerate through a tiny gap. And then you most likely get T-boned and pretty much fly into a different dimension. You're also then going to notice most of the AI pretty much drive right through it. They do not care. It's honestly hilarious. They're going to flip over. You'll see cars like sliding on the backside of them, pretty much going down the road, or pretty much T-boning each other, blocking parts of the road. It's honestly pretty dang hilarious. Now, with all of this, though, when I was using the Viper, I do understand the biggest thing is to not wreck into stuff, but I do know you probably can't completely destroy your vehicle. The goal is to not, destroy the car, so to speak, but then again, though, you can if you want. Ask me how I know, because I will get into the other version of the event I just did earlier, and I feel like that one's going to be even funnier to try to complete that one, which is going to be with legit no HUD, which I would say is an absolute nightmare, but also absolutely hilarious. You guys really are going to laugh, though, because so many cars in this event basically crash all the time into each other. They legit do not stop. They go right through the middle of it, wreck, pretty much blocking the whole road. You are pretty much going to be prone to wrecking and stuff like that. It basically does happen. This is also why I would recommend using a faster car, maybe something like the Dodge Viper, maybe the Lambo. That way you're going to have a lot of acceleration to get away from the other vehicles, or, getting through the gap. That way you don't completely crash into them. But you know what? Speaking of that, what's really interesting about this, though, is I was going back in playing these older games, and man, like, there is something about some of these races that are so dang fun and really entertaining to jump back into. Like, I do not know of another racing game that has something like a chaotic event like this in it, at least for the newer games. Like, you're not going to find a crazy figure eight race in something like Need for Speed or Motorfest or something. Maybe back in the Crew 2, we had the figure eight races with the Demolition Derby vehicles, which I would say is fairly close, but Motorfest isn't going to have any of that stuff in there, nothing for Demolition Derby, which in ways this is technically going to be the most expensive Demolition Derby race ever, because if you add like the weird things that come out of the map that was in the Crew 2, then yeah, you legit have a Demolition Derby event on your hands. But no, this is Need for Speed Shift, bro. You are pretty much going to have to try to survive, and running the HUD, I would say, is the best bet. But if y'all really do want to make this interesting, I would say the funniest thing you can do on this, not even going to lie, I did end up jumping back into the race. I went into my settings, I turned off the HUD, and that basically transformed the entire event. Funny part is, back in the day, I really never used to do the event, at least this one with no HUD, because I knew it was going to be insane. But I'm like, you know what, let me turn this off and just let me see what's going to happen. Funny part is, guys, it legit turns everything off on your screen, no speedometer or anything, so run it in automatic, which I normally do anyway. No maps, so you're not going to be able to see when it is safe to cross the middle of the race there, and and you pretty much find yourself trying to maybe look with the camera, trying to see if it's safe, or you probably ended up doing what I was pretty much doing the entire time I was doing this event with no HUD, and that is pretty much me driving through the entire race, not really worrying about it, going, okay, well, I'm going to go through this now, good luck everybody else, or pretty much good luck to me, because if you're going through that, you're pretty much going to get T-boned or T-bone somebody else. really no way around that. You might hit them, fly into the wall or something. I also had a few parts in this race to where some of the AI legit went flying, bro. Flying. It was so dang funny. They get hit so hard they legit go flying somewhere else. Then they spawn in, their card looks like an entire like toaster. Pretty much destroyed. There's no spoilers. There's barely any lights working on it. Cars are flipping over. This entire race is just absolute chaos, man. And if you were like me, though, you most likely did end up playing this game back in the day, probably having the entire HUD on and stuff like that. Or maybe you didn't because it was going to be, a track-focused racing game. But I was like, okay, let me turn this off. Let me try the event out. I knew it was going to be crazy because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when someone's going to crash, including you. Like, you're like, oh, is it safe to go through the road? Ha, nope. You then get T-boned, pretty much run into the wall. You then have to back up or something. Then the AI come through and crash into you and then crash into the other racers. There's legit cars sitting everywhere and stuff. It's honestly hilarious. Then going into first-person mode, you're trying to use the camera and look like, oh, do I see anybody? Is it safe? You might end up stopping there, and sometimes you might see them and crash anyway. It really is such a hilarious experience. I do wish more games had something like this in there to where you had really funny races like this in the game that we all do know you're probably going to get wrecked in. Guys, imagine for a second seeing something like this race in a modern racing game, and we had a full lobby of, let's say, 15, 20 players in there. Maybe they can have penalties or something, so if you go backwards, you're not allowed to do that stuff or mess people up. But imagine everybody racing on a small figure-8 track like this. Imagine the chaos. It would be so dang funny. You probably would most likely not even complete the race, but hey, I feel like some players would try to complete it. Others are most likely going to crash or wait. Or at the main intersection of the figure-8 thing there, people might end up sitting there waiting for it to be safe, and you have like most of the lobby sitting there like, you can go, no, you can go, then you all go the same time and crash into each other. I don't know, man. I feel like it would be hilarious. But going back on a Need for Speed Shift and playing through this whole game really has been so dang fun, guys. I feel like I know this game did get a lot of hate back in the day. We all do know it wasn't going to be the true Need for Speed formula, if you want to call it that, but I feel like they did a really good job with the overall track focus part of it. We all do know Gran Turismo is probably going to completely obliterate this game in a lot of ways, but even then I feel like EA really did a great job overall with how the gameplay is. I do like the way the cars handle in Shift. I am going to play through Shift 2. I got a copy of that game finally. Looking forward to it because I never played Shift 2, but if it is going to be anything like Shift 1, it's going to have chaotic events like this. I think it's going to be a really fun time. Now, the footage you guys are seeing in the background is going to be with the Porsche 911 GT3. This is the car I did end up wanting to use without the HUD active. I knew this car wasn't as good as the Viper. I knew it wasn't going to accelerate as much. I knew it was a bit slower, handled a tad worse. I do understand the works conversion versus a regular car like that is a big difference. But driving this car, though, and doing this event, I knew it was going to get completely wrecked, and I was okay with that. I jumped in going, all right, I'm probably not going to beat this with my car being untouched. Surely enough, guys, you are going to see small clips of me in the background crashing or, trying to get through the main part of it, not dying, or I guess you could say getting hit. You're also then going to see the AI like sitting on the backside of their car on the roof. You're also then going to see AI spinning into the wall or running into each other. You'll see the cars flying through the air. This entire race is honestly so dang hilarious. I remember back in the day when I was playing this on the PS3, I always used to do this event. I do understand it may not pay that much. You might only get like 80 grand from it, but I was having so much fun doing this race, man. I didn't even really care that much about the money. I went in there going, okay, let me see if I can do this whole race and not get hit at all. I remember being the entire race basically not having a scratch on my vehicle, and then other times I'd then jump in there and completely get obliterated. And now I was like, all right, let's make this even crazier. Let me not have my HUD active or something. Let me see how it is. And man, it's such a crazy race without your HUD active. I feel like racing without a HUD in general is something I might end up trying more. It's honestly pretty entertaining. It almost looks cinematic in a way, like you're racing, you don't see anything on your screen and stuff like that. Even though in Need for Speed Shift, I was always a huge fan of the speedometer being like the car you're driving. And for me, that was something I feel like would have worked in so many different racing games. I also think Midnight Club Los Angeles had something similar to it. But I do remember in Shift, though, whichever car you drove, whether it was like a Lambo, a Porsche, a Dodge Viper, whatever that might have been, you would always be seeing that speedometer that would match the car or something. It was so dang cool. Even the Bugatti, for example. I kind of wish other games had more customization when it came to the overall speedometer, because sometimes they really do look so dang generic. That was something I was looking for in Motorfest, but I really don't see them ever adding something like that, even though everybody would love it. And what's kind of funny about it, though, is you can also tell in some ways that they had the design there with how the playlist thing is set up, but it seems like the overall speedometer customization thing is just not going to be a thing, at least for right now. Going back onto something like Need for Speed Shift in 2009, seeing this in there, now I do understand turning that off, you're not really going to seed and stuff, doing a figure 8 race, it is pretty much going to be absolute chaos, and if I had to guess, you're probably not going to be focusing on your speedometer, you're probably going to be focusing on not getting completely wrecked and trying to get around the track in at least one or, multiple pieces. In my case, I basically lost almost every single part of my Porsche at the end of the event. I did also end up getting second because I had no idea what place I was in. One way to do that is to maybe see by turning on the HUD like toward the end, maybe trying to come back, but to be honest, guys, I knew what I was getting myself into doing this event. I knew I was going to wreck. Seeing how the other AI cars look, like if you look around at the other vehicles in the event, every single car, bro, is legit completely destroyed. Like, every car looks completely wrecked. They're missing basically everything. You're then going to be like, okay, well, the car is fine. Then they then get T-boned again, flip up in the air, land upside down. This whole race is hilarious. Like, I jump back in, do this event. I can legit do it for hours. It is so dang hilarious. I really wish other games had events like this one. I would say this is probably going to, again, be a very expensive demolition derby. So, we probably would not see any races like this in real life, driving 300, 400, probably almost $1 million race cars and something like this. You know you're going to wreck them. But no, a demolition derby event like, again, we had in the Crew 2 would make complete sense. But I feel like having this in Need for Speed Shift is so dang hilarious. Do let me know in the comments below, by the way, is there a track or a race like this in Gran Turismo 7? When I was playing the game, I do not remember seeing one. I don't think there is. But man, that would be so dang funny. I feel like part of that is also going to come down to the overall damage model we had in Need for Speed Shift. Is it my imagination, man, or is the damage model going to be incredibly good for being 2009? Like, when you hit stuff, your spoiler will fly off, your bumper's going to fly off. You can see the entire thing's going to be dented. There's dirt all over your car and stuff. And then that detail in return is then going to make the races even more entertaining, especially something as chaotic as this figure 8 race. Do let me know what y'all think about this event in the comments below. Do you guys remember also doing this race? Feeling the automatic chaos when it did end up starting probably 3 or 4 laps in. If you turn that HUD off, it's going to make the entire experience even crazier. I gotta admit, playing Need for Speed Shift really is such a fun time. I feel like players would love it. Seeing something like this game return on the PS5, I feel like players would give it a shot, even though we all do know a lot of people are probably going to end up playing something like Gran Turismo over Need for Speed Shift. I feel like the overall gameplay and setting is still going to set it apart and make the overall experience a tad different than something like Gran Turismo.